Oh, listen to him. I think that is a chauvinistic comment. And I'm just not really in the mood for that today,
Did you
Mr.
hear that
O'Connell.
joke?
I didn't
Carol?
I didn't hear anything.
I didn't either.
I think
And corporate counsel did hear that as he's
I
blushing
would
over
prefer
there.
to be called sir.
Sir,
Where that screws me.
sir what? Sir O'Connell.
Sewer.
Yeah.
All right, let's open up our meeting. Call to order and let's have a roll call, please.
Kim O'Connell.
Here.
Sharon Kelly.
Here.
Tracy LeBlanc. Here. Doug Howdy.
Here.
Pamela Garvey.
Here.
And Mr. Justin Wood looks to be on. He's on.
Yeah, so,
5 out of 6 today.
okay. Approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Pam, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Doug. Anybody see anything or not? Hearing nothing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Minutes from the 23rd were in our packet.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, Sharon, Tracy. Any changes anyone seen? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Away it goes. Public comment, no public here. No other supervisor here for that. Dive into annual reports.
Per usual, these are the longer narrative version of the annual reports in the division. And so for today, there's land and water. Well, let me do one at a time here. There's land and water resources department. Resources department. I anticipate handing them out and then,
What's for the clerk?
yes. Because I prefer not to, I mean, I guess it's at your discretion, but I prefer not to stand up here and read them to you. There's a lot of data and information in the reports. I was wondering if it would be prudent to have an agenda item on the next meeting to answer any questions on the annual reports that you guys might find or have from the committee. Now, land information obviously includes zoning, but because of the reporting and some of the state mandated reports as well, we do a separate narrative in that department as well.
Sure.
Shabana, did
What does everybody feel? Yeah, we don't want to sit and read these and pick through them.
so,
That we can come back
yeah.
and do it at the next meeting if there's questions,
And in addition, we'll have the
highlights or whatever.
yeah, the Department of Administration has given us the format for kind of the simple one-page annual report that accompanies the budget. And so I thought that I could provide that to you and then answer any questions on the narrative as well. Is
Okay,
that fair?
I think that would, yeah, because we're not gonna sit and read all this today.
You might.
You have your highlighter available?
You might.
All right.
It's one of those days.
He doesn't leave home without it.
Okay. She wears the coat that matches my highlighter. Yeah, she's ready for me.
Yeah, I should note that you already did receive the Forest Group annual report, like the longer version.
Yeah.
So, and again, there will also be that budget annual report narrative that comes.
No,
with it.
is yours coming next meeting? Or are you gonna send it to us ahead of time? And we can,
We already did it.
He did it at the.
We already got that.
we got that.
Yep.
Oh,
You better check that briefcase.
it's right there. It's right here. Yep.
Yep.
Check
All
that
right.
briefcase.
All right.
You can do it at the same time.
Yeah,
That takes care of number 7. Let's go to 8 then to the timber sales.
Good. 9:30.
Okay. Ask a couple questions. It's gotta be a half an hour.
This can be very quick or very long if you want.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to read, but there's.
You going?
Yep.
Zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, just a hair more. Right, so, good morning.
Good
Morning.
We had our timber sale bid opening yesterday, 1 o'clock. Few of us were present, Sarah, Paul, and one other purchaser. All 6 sales, we got bids, so that was pretty exciting. Essentially, in terms of the process today, all we need is minutes, right, to show that the committee has sold each tract or each timber sale by name and then by purchaser. If there was no issues with the bidder. Everybody is good on our end for the highest bidder. We did have one that got rejected based on how they filled their bid out, but they wouldn't have been highest bid anyway. So that wasn't contentious as of now, so should be good there. But yeah, we can either go through each individual timber sale and we can talk about it, what we're doing. I did present these timber sales and the maps about a month ago.
month ago, yeah.
So now these were just the bids that came in and the highest bidders that are highlighted in yellow. So total sale value, you can see on the second page too, between the highest bidders, or I guess we'll start with the minimum bid value of what we appraised it at, was $255,700. Total sold value of all of the cumulative high bidders was $431,322.60. So pretty lucrative for the county. So
What do you attribute that difference in being?
We try not to set market,
Yeah.
rate for our appraisal prices.
Yeah.
We'll use a little bit of historical data, right? So more of the low end and let the competitive bidding process kind of play itself out. So that we don't discourage bidders that might bid. We obviously have species that aren't a high value right
Yeah,
now,
sure.
jack pine, scrub oak, particularly in sterling. So we don't wanna, even $1 a ton difference on
Yeah.
an appraisal can make a no bid there.
Yeah.
But our high quality, like, where we actually made our money in McKinley, Yogi's Picnic and Dabbler, they're very high quality wood. So we might put a rate at $250 a thousand, but we're getting bids at 380, 400 because of they're also merchandising how they want to do it when we're selling straight volume.
Yeah.
When they cruise, they're like, I get a 12-foot veneer log out of this one. So right there, their inputs or outputs are a little bit different than what we have.
Yeah.
They go a little bit more in depth. So
Well, it works, whatever it's working.
yeah, it does work. It gets people a bid and that's the good thing. So white oak's obviously doing a little better than red oak. There were some pretty high bids there. Just the differences, right? Some of the big hardwood jobs, those are mostly mills. So they're competing based on what their markets are at the time. So they might have lost the market. So might be why they dipped a little bit in price, or their hauling is, farther, because Northwest Hardwoods is in Dorchester. We got Park Falls a little closer, not much, but Struck's probably the closest. They got some mills, Lady Smith and West. So you'll see some differences just in hauling rates, especially with how expensive it's gotten. So, and you get a few that live right in Sterling, right? That got a couple bids. The firewood market does help us sell some wood. We're just happy. A couple of them are pretty happy. They just sold, right? For reforestation purposes, like cookie dough. That's going to be a restart for planting. So I was happy to see 3 bids on that. Just might not make much, but we're getting paid to start it over, so I can go in and replant. So so very good bid opening. So I was happy with that.
So the timing on this is what, they have a year?
Or
2
most of them are 2.
2 years?
Dabbler, I gave them 3 years. That it's a winter only job, very wet. So
So
I'm gonna give them a little extra time, and there was a lot of volume on that.
And that one too, okay.
Yep, so, yeah, the process, right, we have sales that sold 2 years ago that are finishing up June 30th of this year, so we have kind of a,
So it keeps rolling over,
always have a cycle of constant revenue.
okay.
And then last year was we had a good bid opening last year, so those sales are starting to get entered into or will be this fall and winter to be done June of 26.
Sure.
So most of these are June of 27, so.
I was up last week in the areas up in there, off of Evergreen,
Yep.
way out in the middle of nowhere. And there was people logging, they were hauling a lot of wood over there. And then as long as we were there, we went through the equestrian park.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never been up there.
Oh,
It was a Thursday and I bet there was at least 20 different
campers.
campers with
Jason.
horses and stuff. I mean, it's really nice back there.
Yeah, yep. It's very integrated in recreation and forestry, right? That's
Right there, they're right, yeah.
social pressures, right? Involving recreation, high recreation use with county forests and state, it's a state forest too down the west, Gov Knolls. So we're pretty, timber production while providing for recreation, wildlife, water. So there's always conversations revolving around logging.
We went, and of course, we went by the intensive ATV park too. We didn't go back in there. But you could see some of it from the road and stuff. But the equestrian one, I was really impressed. And then we were surprised to see as many people that were logging and stuff too.
Yep. This is a pretty popular time of year for sterling. That's the big reason why we sell the wood there is because we allow breakup during spring breakup. We allow harvesting in the sand country.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we don't hurt anything. We have no water. We have no wetlands. We have no streams, crossings.
Sand, a lot of sand.
It's a lot of sand. So really, they're only subject to the county road bans. That's where things get a little muddy. With if the county, even though the county does their road bans, certainly a lot of the towns just do a straight ban.
Yeah.
So we can't move wood out. Even if we could on the county, because we only have like 4 little roads on county bans.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't affect sterling, but we just can't get the wood out of Evergreen during that time. But we allow them to pile, right? Get ahead. They're at least cutting. They're at least working.
And haul it
They
later.
can make a little bit of money or break even. They're pretty happy
Yeah.
because otherwise in the north, the Northwoods, they can't go anywhere unless they're in sand. So
Interesting.
Douglas County, they get some spring breakup work up there too in their pine. So, yeah. Yep.
I'm assuming that you clear cut or do you select cut some of this?
Yeah, so a little bit of everything, right? Depends on what species we have. So like we can go through that a little bit. Windsor vanilla, that's going to be a clear cut promoting aspen, right? That's scrub oak, jack pine with a lot of aspen mixed in. So we're going to be converting it all to aspen essentially. You don't need much aspen to make a future aspen stand have more acres. And then cookie dough, that's going to be mostly clear cut too to prep for planting. So we can't have, if we're doing any planting management, we need space to put trees. So we're going to be clear cutting cookie dough. Red ivy is a red pine thinning. That's what a 70-year-old red pine stand. So planted in the 50s. That one's the fourth entry that's been thinned. So very nice stand, and it'll look very nice when it's done. So we can push red pine right on a thinning regime, select cutting that for a long time. Eventually, we have to think about pulling the trigger on those because all trees don't live. So we just try to maximize that before they do have mortality. Yogi's Picnic, that's 40 acres of clear cut integrated in a larger stand of 130 acres of thinning, I think. So they're patches, they're like patches of 3 acres, patches of 5, 9, and it's essentially where we can't thin anymore. Or we had a high ash content because emerald ash borers is really starting to make its way. So I'm kind of trying to triage the ash problem that we have, or that we're expected to have, and try to maximize the value for, before it gets killed by the emerald ash borer. So That one's just integrated patch clear cuts. Very good wildlife habitats. It's not a, it's, they're small, right? Landscape wise, when they're 5 to 20 acres, it's kind of mosaicked in. So in terms of social pressures, it's usually not too bad. So Fool's Gold, that one will be a clear cut. That was dozer scarified in 2017. So essentially DNR, I think it was a DNR dozer probably, but went in the understory. It's a jack pine overstory, and it is, the jack pine is declining, right? It probably could have been cut 5-10 years ago. But went through, scarified it, brought it all, most of it to sand, and then the jack pine opens their cones in the fall. A lot of our cones don't require fire. They just need sunlight. So they're dropping seed in the fall. We've let it sit for 4, 5, 6 years now. And we have enough natural jack pine seedlings that we're going to take the overstory and then release the next cohort. So even as you're driving on Evergreen, if you see some jack pine that's, 3,000 stems to the acre and it's 15 feet tall, that's a previous scarified site, most likely. So it's not in rows or anything, it's just natural. And if we can do as much natural regeneration as we can, that is preferred because of the cost. The input costs are very high to plant. So we have to be pretty careful where we choose our sites. So we try to maximize natural regeneration, whether it's hardwood management or even in Sterling. So, and then Dabbler, that one is 50 acres of thinning. So that's hardwoods, red oak and hardwoods. And then 40 acres of shelterwood. So we had a huge acorn crop, 3 years ago, the white oak. And this oak is already pushing over 100 years old. So it's already in that decision making of, do we slowly rotate it to northern hardwoods, to sugar maple, shade tolerant species? That's what's happening in a lot of our oak in Polk County. As the oak dies, right, late successional shade tolerant species release in those pockets where they die. We use forestry as the tool to direct that quickly. So the shelterwood essentially is, we're still keeping trees on the landscape, but it is a regeneration harvest. It's gonna look pretty nice. But we're taking probably, what would you say, 80%?
Shelterwood, yeah.
80% of the volume. So then we're leaving big dominant white oak, red oak for future seed, for wildlife, for snag recruitment, woodpeckers, right? Eagles, perching. And then all the white oak regen in the understory, it's free white oak, right? We have just a chock full of little white oaks that need sun. They will die if we don't, if we don't release them. So that we're gonna open that one up. And that's a big reason why that value is so high. But the other 50 acres, similar timber type, didn't think we needed to pull the top yet. And that's why we just thinned it. So we're always constantly mosaicing. It's a little bit of a science of, we're not trying to do 500 acre clear cuts or anything like that, but kind of patch it. And that's why we can continue to provide revenue in perpetuity and always have working for us, as long as county forest is here. So
I have one last question.
yeah.
Who names these areas?
Paul and I.
I was gonna ask,
Because some of them are old
wondered if you
names.
were gonna ask.
Yeah.
Windsor Vanilla.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Cookie
I'm
dough.
just kidding. I mean, it's just.
We try to have
figured
fun.
you guys-
We try to have a little fun with them.
Yeah,
Usually something on the landscape at the time we found or saw.
yeah.
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 Well, it is a berry.
There was a few bottles laying around.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, so that's why they're all named for something. Cookie dough, right? I found a bear bait.
Sure.
Yeah.
I said dough instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
On the bidding or once they're accepted. So so you're estimating how much tonnage or how many board feet are there?
Yep.
So how does that work as far as, did they say, this is how much money we're gonna pay and we're just taking everything? Or is it actually scaled? And if they go over, we get more? Or I'm just curious as far as how that works.
There's both actually. We have scaled jobs and we have lump sum.
Okay.
So like Dabbler and Yogis were lump sum. So they're gonna be doing, right, we're selling the product that it's either marked. We tell them what is supposed to be cut. Anything outside of that on a lump sum is not supposed to be unless we work something out, right? So lump sum, they're gonna be really doing, their foresters or their people are gonna be cautious, and they'll probably put a lot of plots in and a lot of similar how we cruise our volume. So they know that the volume is there. The risk is on them
Got it.
when on a lump sum, but the scale jobs, right, that's a more of a market rate. This is what I'm willing to pay, because that will get scaled either by us or we allow mill scale receipts. And usually, yeah, there's the only time we really have to scale it ourselves, particularly in Sterling, is firewood going to somebody's private land. We'll scale that before it leaves because the mill's not going to be weighing it. But, and then in the hardwoods too, if we have a log job and scaled, we're going to be scaling it.
Okay.
And that's part of the reason, right? This is 1 million board feet. It's a lot of volume for us to be scaling. So that's why lump sum, it lowers the admin time for us. So there's some benefit there, and it for them too. There's some added admin, you know, because they have to give us all the scale tickets, et cetera. And a truck on a scale job cannot leave unless they have a scale ticket. We have our own scale tickets. Truckers have to fill it out, put it in their ticket box. They bring it to the mill, then the mill sends the reports back to what the scale is.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you.
One more
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
The town of Bone Lake did their 40 where the gravel pit is, and it's private on 4 sides. Well, when they logged that to go in and get more gravel, then they had to survey it. Do we have to do any of that at?
Paul and I have pretty accurate tools to do property lines, but if there's stuff that's contentious or we need, especially like a clear cut boundary that we don't want to be trespassing, or we don't want to be leaving 15 feet onto somebody else because of possession of, especially when you have a clear cut line, right? So I'll use ad surveyor to get a pretty accurate private property line. But I wouldn't say have you ever done a survey on a property outside of just using this?
Just county surveyor.
Yeah, just county survey. I never did like a certified survey map or anything like that, so, but yeah, but we'll use, Ed's got even better equipment, you know, sub-centimeter, whatever.
And we notify the adjacent landowners, and if there's contention, we either get Ed, county surveyor, or we can enter into a boundary line agreement for the purpose of that timber sale with that landowner, so that we never have problems with property lines, because it's figured out ahead of time before stuff happens. So
I think I sent the landowner letters in December or January for these sales and no responses, but I think 7 or 8 different landowners. Obviously, we don't have big blocks, so we're always adjacent to private somehow. And it's just, yeah, we just try to get out ahead of it before there's a problem. So, and just explain, we send the timber sale map to them, explain what we're doing, why we're doing it. And just kind of a disclaimer of our lines are not a certified survey line, but pretty close and approximate. So,
Okay,
yeah, so essentially, yeah, what we need is the
should we do a motion to approve?
yeah, it'd be a motion by the timber sale and by the value, right? Right.
right, you need the,
Or as proposed?
what,
We can do a motion as proposed then, as,
you should put into the minutes the name of the buyer and for the full value.
so we could do that with this document.
Yeah.
This document can be put into the minutes. We could maybe do that and then it saves a lot of lengthy
Yeah.
motioning.
That sounds good.
Okay,
I make a motion that we move forward with all the sales that are listed in this document and the identified dollar amounts.
okay. Does that sound suffice? Okay, is there a second? Second from Doug. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed? So now what are you gonna do with all the extra money from Governor Evers at 2,700 for the county roads, forest
Ah.
roads?
Nothing.
Did you get it yet?
I didn't get anything.
Oh, you didn't even know that?
No, did we get some money for road aid?
You're supposed to get 2,700 is what, I got a DNR update
Oh.
that you're supposed to get 20, Polk County gets 2,700 extra.
We must have doubled it then, because that's about what we get per year.
So maybe they're lying to us. They just said you're gonna get the
I'll wait till
normal
the
amount.
check shows up, then I'll let you know.
You get the normal amount this year.
They send that check to the highway commissioner and then the
Yeah.
highway commissioner has to walk it across.
Yeah, he'll really do it.
Yeah, I can brush for about 60 feet and then it's gone.
I was gonna say it's that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We on the fee schedule.
Fee schedule,
All right.
we're done. It's just 4K, raise the prices.
You know,
I have 3 separate fee schedules. This initial one is the Register of Deeds fee schedule. As you know, a lot of the fees that are set in the Register of Deeds, or if you don't know, they're statutorily set. And so there's not a lot of play within these. You will see in the 2026 fee rate that the register went ahead and made some changes to the few that she could. Can you give her? I just want to point out a few of them. The Laredo subscription fee, for example, Fiddler Technologies is, those are a result of software increased costs. So she's just raising things accordingly. So those are the Register of Deeds fees. I think it's fairly straightforward. Again, just trying to cover the costs as her expenses are increasing.
And we have to feel good that we get more back to the state.
That's if,
Register, but
yeah, that's
separate,
if,
yeah.
again, yeah, and then.
But that
and then-
won't change these if
No.
we get it. Okay.
No, that's the state. That would be the transfer fees that increases.
Okay, so that would, yeah, it wouldn't affect these fees. Okay.
Right.
So could you explain what the Laredo subscription fee is?
The Laredo subscription fee is when people are using the software to view, they pay a subscription.
So that's different than like our tapestry search and everything else. So can you so who would use the Laredo? I mean, that's, I'm just curious. What does that even look like? Who would use that?
Realtors use it, don't they, and stuff?
Oh, okay,
Because then you have to pay for the deed,
sure.
or you have to pay for a survey map or a plat map.
Okay.
Because I have to go in there and pay it separate.
Yeah.
That's what,
Um,
but you could go online and do it, and then they could send you it online.
Title searchers,
Got it.
you know,
Thank you.
realtor people
Okay,
working in
thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. It's like
Mhm.
in my different, I've never
Yep,
kind of
yep.
run across that.
So
So just,
read this, you don't get anything for nothing
well,
at the county.
Well, it's funny that you say that because the towns are getting hit hard with the title searches.
Oh, yeah.
And we've actually had to create a fee now because they refuse. We tell them you can get all that information from the county.
Yeah.
And it's more accurate than what we would have because now we have to go and do,
The same
county
thing.
search. We're the middle guy. So it's like, you know what, we're not doing this for nothing anymore. It takes time.
Yeah.
So that's obviously why they're wanting us to do it. So they can avoid that fee,
Yes,
but they're not avoiding a fee anymore. So,
No.
Right.
and then
and that's a lot of it is for permits.
yeah.
For the
Yeah.
permits, you have to go in there and actually get the stuff to get a permit.
And the bottom two, I believe, are the, are basically mail fees because normally they're electronically sent back. But if the person requests an actual hard copy sent to them, it's to cover the mailing fee.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
reasonable.
Cost of business. Yep. And if you guys want Sally to come in, she certainly can. I gave one to Shabana.
Already.
I'm ahead of you. These are the land information
Okay.
fees. This is basically, zoning, mapping, planning, surveying. So for plat review, for any zoning permits that you see, these are the fees that, your constituents pay. Oh yeah, would you like that? You want one of the registered deeds as well? With the green line.
When,
Go ahead. Yeah,
Sorry,
yep, I was gonna ask.
I'm seeing on signs, do cities, do they pay any? Do they
The
don't
arm of
have
the county government does not reach into.
any of the cities?
Incorporated areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the unincorporated.
Now, was there any highlights that these went up,
A
down?
comparison.
There is no comparison on this one at this time because the fees were not altered from 24 to 25.
Okay,
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask
It
too,
was
then.
zero change.
thank you.
Zero change.
And the only reason I ask about signs is I just got a notification about a sign in the city and I thought, is that different? Do they actually
It
have a
is.
sign ordinance? Oh, no, they
Oh,
don't.
God, yes.
Oh, no, they don't.
They don't. Sacred Falls doesn't,
No.
that you know of. Okay.
Yeah.
So we could say there was no change.
2024 and 2025 were consistent.
Okay.
We kind of did it, well, first of all, I had just come back on board and took a look at the fees. There had been some adjustment and some increases that had already been assessed. I think there was an across the board fee increase in 2021, perhaps. I'm looking at Eric, yes.
Yeah. I
And
think
so,
for all of it,
and
yeah.
when I just looked and did kind of the quick look of surrounding counties, they were still fairly high. So we left them alone. Instead of doing a blanket increase, I would suggest, maybe we can, Logan and I can take a look at some of the specific, maybe special uses that we're seeing. For example, the annual fee on tourist rooming houses at 300. That is something that could easily be adjusted. And maybe splitting out house, commercial bunkhouse, conditional use grading and filling and having several of those have a slight increase as well. Instead of doing a blanket across the board, maybe take a couple of them that are taking a little more staff time. Or like example for tourist rooming house, we're going to be investigating a software to help us track. It's taking a little bit more administrative time. Maybe a $500 fee a year is not out of line. I actually, along with the thought of the land or the annual reports, was kind of thinking that we were talking about these today, but I do see that there's the ability for action. So in the interest of time, let's move on to, I would suggest having the land information fees, that piece that you're looking at now, be on June agenda for final consideration. And we can have some additional information. The land and water resources and the register of deeds seem like they're fairly straightforward and we might not need to revisit them again. I'm going to give you land and water resources right now.
Okay.
Madam, will you go on? So there's a unique situation in land and water resources with NR 135, non-metallic mining permit. Please. There's quite an analysis on this one, on the second one. That's really pertaining to NR 135. Eric is here to talk about this a little bit further, but Dane Christensen did a pretty hard look at the fee schedule in that particular area. And with realized efficiencies with technology, software, LiDAR, all of the things, our fees are a little bit high. And the DNR in that program is pretty specific in you need to sustain the program and not make money on it. So I just draw your attention to the line, and it's in bold at the very bottom. It says like 5,212, right? So that's our surplus. So right here, 5,212.
Okay.
So that's what we're making extra.
That would be projected for,
Projected extra.
Projected for,
yeah, for 2026,
okay.
Mhm.
projected permit revenue.
But
So
now if we add some of the soil erosion and stuff with boathouses and slopes, would that eat that up?
Completely separate.
Completely separate part,
This
okay.
as a standalone.
yep, come on
This
up,
is a
Eric.
standalone, okay.
So this is something that we've been keeping an eye on since an audit from DNR. The fees paid by mine operators are only for operational administrative costs, right? So we want to be mindful of our expenses administratively for this
program and the revenue generated by the fees. And that's what we're doing with this comprehensive analysis. In 2024, we had a pretty substantial surplus. And so we went into this analysis and projected wages for 2026 and beyond. And to be honest, we even have, considered potentially decreasing some of those costs or suggesting a decrease, but at a minimum, no increase, for this next year and maybe a few years beyond is going to be adequate. There's a number that we're kind of, I don't know, watching, I'll say, and it's a surplus or deficit per permit. And we have 66 permits in the county. So we have a lot of permits. There's a fair amount of revenue there. And for lack of a better description, we could keep our fees pretty reasonable because we have a lot of mines, a bulk type discount, so to speak. But so there's kind of a mark of $100 surplus per permit when the analysis is done. And in 2024, we were at $127 surplus per permit. Well, we want to have the conversation to get that surplus number down below 100 because upon a DNR audit, we would be closer to balancing revenue versus administrative costs, if that makes sense. So if you go down it kind of in the middle of the page to the right where the projected revenue and expenses are, there's a number of columns, and Dane did a great job of listing this out, and I don't think we have it up on the screen, but as Sarah indicated, the projected 2026 permit revenue and the total surplus on all of the 66 permits would be 5,212. And by my math, the surplus per payment or per permit rather would be about $79. So we're below 100 there, which is good. If we were to decrease the fees to what they were in 2021 before the last increase, our surplus per permit would be $66.70, and that would be something that would be acceptable upon an audit from DNR. So food for thought, I guess. But
So it could go up or down some, but they want you to be as close as you can.
absolutely.
And under 100 is what they're trying to say.
Yeah, that's kind of the mark that was suggested to us upon the last audit, and that's something that we're trying to achieve. And with the projected numbers of administrative costs and keeping the 2026 fee schedule the same as 25, we would be under that, but we could even go a little bit lower and decrease some of the permit fees a little bit if that's what the committee chose to do. So.
Can I ask, I see under administrative costs, they've included a 10% increase for phone, IT stuff, computers and that type of thing. But there's no, it doesn't look like they've added anything in for salary benefits. I mean, benefits every year go up.
Right.
So I don't know if.
It's calculated in there.
It is, okay.
It is. And so there was a 2022 through 2024 average administrative costs of listed there in the second bullet. But if you go up into the table, there's an increase for projected administrative costs, and it increased by about $2,000. And so the 10% increase, I can expand upon that too. We, we have implemented, GIS tracking program through Esri Products, ArcGIS Online. And we have found significant efficiencies in mailings and tracking of these permits and these sites. It's decreased staff time. So that's kind of why we're seeing, some of these reduced administrative costs or less of an increase in administrative costs, maybe is the way to look at it. But those softwares are more expensive, so we have to put a nominal increase in for.
Oh, yeah, I get that. I mean, I wasn't questioning that. I get that. It's
But now, if something ever happened, that, what do we do with this extra money? That just goes in the general fund, or where does that go? Is this a closed account?
Yeah, that's
Six.
that's the questions that we're trying to avoid with this. It would just go into our budget and offset additional, expenses.
Set other things.
Yes.
But we want to be mindful of that because again, these fees for line operators only there for NR 135 program administration. And if we ever had the question of what's being done with that money, we want to make sure that we can
So see if you
tie
had,
it to that program or identify that there's only a nominal revenue associated.
so what if happens if you had a big violation and you had to be out there a lot? Now you'd overrun, it would go the other way, wouldn't it?
Potentially. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we gotta leave some buffer in there, don't we?
Right.
Because it'd only take one mine with a big outwash or something, into a lake or a stream. Be like the Grantsburg one where that whole hillside went out.
Lucky we don't have any
You don't have any big ones like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think the chances of that are pretty minimal, but if we do get a new site potentially, there's fees built in to cover some of that and,
Cover some,
but,
yeah.
there oftentimes are some compliance issues where we're chasing permit fees or checking reclamation, things like that, but
Sure.
But I think we're covered,
Covered pretty good, all right.
comfortable.
So do you think if you leave them the same and just not raise them for 2 years, it would keep it closer?
That's certainly an option. And with that, with wage increases each year and things like that, we would chip away at that. It would buy us time to the next increase, certainly. But,
Because then you'd be, like you said, that 66, 70, you might be down to 50 or something, and that would be
right,
just to be safe.
right. But if there was feedback on these fees being, too high or something like that, we would have some room to increase them. And that was something that,
But it wouldn't be much. If you're 100 and something a permit, you would drop it $50.
yeah, you can see
The
it
paperwork.
for the 0 to 5 acres, it would drop $5. If for the 51 plus acres, it would be about $26.
Yeah, so it would be more paperwork than it was worth. If you left it the same for a while,
Sure.
be less headaches.
And yeah, we're uncertain when the next audit would be, but I'm relieved to see that, we're kind of, by leaving them alone, we would be chipping away at that surplus per permit and we're in a little better place.
Sure.
So would that leave us okay still with the DNR? I mean, you said they do an audit, so if we're in excess by a certain amount,
No.
what's the downside of that?
It's really up to them. All I can say is it would be a better number than we were in 24 because there was a surplus, over that $100 mark and that's getting a little on the high side. And in our last audit, that was noticed and it was brought up as a talking point that this was something we want to be mindful of and consider, no increases.
So we haven't done that for the last couple of years.
Right, so their actual recommendation was to consider no increases?
Correct.
Okay.
Or just
Right, but for just, yeah, for what we're talking about, the
The-
mining stuff.
the permit fees for
Right.
non-metallic mining.
Yes, yep,
That doesn't include, if you're looking at our fee schedule, it would only be the inactive fee through the 51 plus acres.
got it.
So the $100 through the 1,048.
And that's all they're even concerned about, is that group of,
Yeah, those would be the fees for the mine operators that are intended to cover operational
got it.
administration. Okay, the other ones, those are the ones that, need to cover our time for processing, new permits or transfers, expedited reclamation fees, things like that. So, but it's our recommendation that those stay the same.
That's what every department should be doing with their fees. Naturally, is looking to cover our costs, not to generate.
Revenue.
Absolutely.
Is to cover our costs.
Yeah.
With that, and that's our policy on those, so. This is
And
a
that
good
little
look
bit
at
of
how-
buffer isn't worth changing the whole fee for like $12 and that. I mean, it isn't. So it goes from 100 to 98 or 88 or something. I mean, that's just. It seems pretty fair that they've been this way for this long. We haven't really had complaints that I know of. Have you? I mean, they've been sitting pretty flat for quite a while now.
No, and you do take a hypothetical look at fringes and benefits and
Yeah.
plugging those costs in there also, so.
What was the two figures? I know the 66 one, I got that, but wasn't it 79 that you said?
Oh, yeah, for that surplus per permit, when you break it down.
79, yeah.
And again, that's looking at our projected revenue and expenses with different scenarios and looking at the total surplus on those permits that we're projecting. So if we keep the fee schedule the same in 26 as 25, the surplus per permit would be $78.96. If we were to decrease the fees to what they were in 2021, that surplus would be $4,402, and the surplus we'd see per permit would be $66.70. So,
Like you said, that doesn't seem to.
But to have a buffer too, yeah, is a good feeling that way. And then the next year it'll be less.
sure. Yes, true, very
The
true.
next year it'll be down to under 50 probably, and then we're gonna be right where we don't dare go too much lower.
I mean, these fees in my mind could, buy us 3 to 5 more years potentially, depending on, what salary and fringes do and what,
Sure.
IT or equipment costs do. And I don't know about any needs for equipment there too, but, we could talk to staff about what needs there would be as far as maybe survey equipment or, site assessment and would be tied to this sort of program. There'd be ways that, that's a really good and useful tool, which a lot of counties do have for this program because a lot of the mine sites are inaccessible or hard to access. And we need to delineate the boundaries of them to calculate the acreage that, figures the fee and the total permit fee cost.
Okay. So do we want to maybe go on any other questions, land and water that we would leave? I think I highlighted on mine, that middle part. And the other ones, they haven't changed much either, have they?
No, the other fees on ours, the only one that really changed recently was the DNR stormwater permit application fee. We added that a few years back, but rest of them largely stayed the same the last couple of years. I believe.
Mine says 2024, so that was last year, so we're leaving them basically at that level then, right now. same as zoning.
Yeah, you've got 2024.
It says 2024,
2024.
the copy.
Oh, that's, it was pulled from online.
I'm just gonna double check, cause I've got 25 here. I just wanna make sure that, I mean,
Oh,
they should
yeah.
all be accurate, but I just
Okay.
wanna make sure.
Oh, that right.
I'll leave this with you.
We get a copy and give but if they're the same, we should
Yep.
give this one to the clerk and then we'll get a copy of the
They're all
2025.
the same, but I'll leave that for
Okay,
you, cause that's the 2025.
so they did stay the same.
Yep, they did.
Okay,
Pulled it right from the website, so I'll let,
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
I'll let Brad know we need to update the website.
okay.
Thank you.
Everybody believe them?
Well, you have it in your hand.
So we could move forward land and water and register of deeds, fees then
Yeah,
schedule.
Mhm.
Is that what you need?
Yes.
For the budget? We need a motion for that or?
Yes, accept them as is, and then they'll go to general government for the.
For the final, okay.
Final. Or in August to be approved, we'll go into the budget process.
Procedurally, would we do, so register of deeds and land and water resources are good, and then both finalize the land information, will they go together to Gen Gov then? So basically, these two go,
These two could go, we'll hold this one till our next, after we read the annual report.
But all three will go to general government at the same time.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to.
oh, I see what you're saying, yeah,
Usually this committee's a month ahead of the other committees with this piece.
okay. So we have, it'll be on our next one to approve.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion for the land and water and registered deeds fees as presented.
I move to approve the fees for register of deeds and land and water resources for 2026. I apologize.
To move forward
Move forward
to
to,
the general.
to general government once land information is complete.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. All those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
All right, those two are done. I'll give it the real one. But they didn't change, so that was good. Okay.
I think we just have,
Administrators update.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a couple things. Mentioned the area up by Governor Knowles in the intensive use park. On April 26th, the ATV, UTV group up there had their annual run up there, and they went through all the trails and the ATV intensive park. Last year they had 45 machines. This year they had 166 machines run, so
wow.
it's gaining popularity up there. The library committee will be holding its public hearing on the revised library plan 30 minutes prior to the board meeting in May. So I sent out information yesterday and then resent out with the attachment this morning. Thank you, Tracy, for, I had really heck of a hard time with that email for some reason. I sent it to the wrong group to start out with that, or recant it back and having a good day was pushing buttons on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Not
was
there with
thinking
another
that
new
too.
Okay.
Budget priorities, we're talking about those at committees now, the committee to start looking at budget priorities and what you guys want to do. That doesn't always mean, equipment, that type of stuff. This committee might want to, advocate to talk to legislators on more water resources or funding that way also. So we're looking at those. Naturally, we're looking at our budget priorities of a flat levy, stable levy, staying on our bonding program for our capital projects. We have the WPPA contract coming up also for negotiations. We're having departments look at extra funding requests, additional funding requests, and these are not wish list items, but what they need. The flat levy, again, we're looking at fiscal discipline and continuing with our programs. Also, we are working on our health benefits and looking at how to go about increases that are coming in our health program and costing, the increasing costs of healthcare. Continue to watch the federal cuts in Medicaid and how those cuts are affecting CSD and Health and Human Services Department. looked online this morning, there was a grant cut for the Wisconsin Health and Human Services, for the federal level for $158 million. So daily, we're trying to track to see how that's gonna filter down to the counties and how we're gonna see that. So that's ever changing and we're keeping an eye on those things. And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions of the administrator? If not, we'll go to Sarah's.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I was in attendance at the Town Association meeting on April 24th. Was able to talk to the 8 towns present about just the different happenings in environmental services. Was able to talk about LiDAR, gave them a little bit of a sample, pulled it up online and was able to kind of do a little bit of a dog and pony show. Not as probably efficient as I would have liked because I'm not super versed in it at this time yet, but I think it was a good opportunity for them to see the technology and then how maybe they could use it and pass along to their engineers. I think at the town level, that technology will help. Some of them could even cut some costs and things important for their road folks to know and just their town engineers as well. So that was helpful. Logan will be in attendance with me at the next town association meeting on July 24th. It's just a nice opportunity for them to meet the zoning administrator. All of the towns have, 24 towns have permits, and so we'll give them some reports of that because even if they have their own zoning, there are shoreline permits that come through in the riparian areas. We have heard from the DNR on our initial review. Their initial review is complete and we will have written comments by the end of next week. When we get them, we will share them with you.
So that'll be for the next meeting.
Yes.
We should, okay,
We get them ahead of the meeting.
Yes.
yeah.
Share them with you. Procedurally wise and busy season, as we've talked about, we're calling for a little bit, the zoning department is calling for a little bit more precise planning and plans on the part of the permitting process. We're working through that, these first couple, like kind of identifying the vulnerable sites, you know, anything over 20% slope, anything over 40% slope. Zoning and land and water resources have had several meetings now, kind of just trying to hash out what that looks like. Sometimes it is taking a little bit more time, but I think we're working through it as quickly as we can. And they're coming to some solutions. And I think the technicians that are also fielding the calls, it's a learning process, right? We're in a bit of a transition with some of that, but all of that I think is coming along nicely. So just FYI, if you're hearing anything about that, just please give me a call.
Are some of these meetings then kind of what we talked about way back where we're trying to pull in the landscapers and what can be done, or are you not to that point yet?
Well, some of the meetings on site have been with landscapers and have been with contractors, but we haven't had an overall meeting yet with all of them because we don't have our ordinance isn't.
Right. No, I just was thinking about when we were talking, just go back to like
Right.
the landscaper saying permit was approved and all of a sudden we show up and we've got nowhere to move. That part of that was the idea that as before the permit is completely approved, that they're part of the conversation. And maybe I'm getting ahead of it because of because of what the ordinance say, but it was, to me, that was even just a process thing to try to help prevent problems down the road.
Right. Logan, do you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, I think that's all part of the plans we're looking to get moving forward as far as making sure all that stuff is addressed. And that's what we're working through with land and water to,
Okay.
because they deal a lot more with like plans that come in with narratives and describing what's actually happening out there. Whereas our previous permits were more of just, didn't go to that level. So we're trying to get them to that level and that's what we're working through. So
Sure.
we're hoping to come up with an example that we can provide them to give them a better idea as well of what we're looking for. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a process and I'm sure there's going to be some pushback. And the
Yeah.
fact that before it's like, I just used to apply and I could do, X.
What's taking so long? This was so much easier.
There's no pushback on
Right.
these permits. This is
Never, I bet.
So, yeah, I think, just listening to the conversations that they're having, trying to get the game plan, trying to make sure all of the staff, everybody's on the same page and able to move forward. But you know, and still trying to process permits too, and
Right.
trying to get people getting their projects going, so. That's where we're at, and we'll keep you apprised of any other procedural changes that might be coming down the pipe, but that, yeah, that's where we are. I think, the other thing that just today quickly, as we're talking about forestry, one of the things I did, because forestry was not something that was in my purview before as the land information department had years ago. So, I had, Mr. Cisco take me on a forest tour, and it was really enlightening. I think I really learned a lot about all of the words he uses and maybe what it looks like out there in the field. And I appreciated that. And it's something that I know the committee that oversees forestry used to do. Once, I don't know if they did it once a year, but I think it was maybe once every other year. You know, obviously, when you're looking at forests and you're looking at the planning, it's a 50-year process. So I don't know that you need to tour it every year, but it might be worth considering if it's something of interest to the committee that we can set up. Even, I mean, fall is a beautiful time to see our county forests, and so we could look at a tour if that's something that the committee.
That's
Was
a great idea.
Okay.
We,
Yeah.
we did that with some of the parks. We went and
We didn't do the intensive part.
Wasn't built
we
yet.
made Tracy
But we
walk
did
the
the-
bridge at.
We did the bridge,
Can't do that again.
we did the bridge, we did
Yeah,
Apple River, we did some of the parks.
and it's good.
Do we
I
need
mean,
to
like, it was
ability
good
to get
when
taken
I
across the
went
bridge? Is
through
that-
the equestrian park. I mean, we're making decisions on these things, and it's nice to get out and see them.
And the
And
visual.
yeah, visual, and it's very helpful to have somebody taking us through there that knows what the heck's going on, instead of us just going out there and saying, oh, yeah, that looks cool.
Yeah.
What are all those wheelbarrows for? I don't, you know.
So
So
I'd be more than happy to
Yeah.
do that.
So it'd be a fall tour, I
I
think,
think
yeah.
I think that seems like when, you know, maybe, well, budgets aren't done, but some of the heavy lifting is done. And again, it's just a beautiful time of year.
Not as many
So
wood
we could-
chips.
Less ticks, yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. And poison ivy's hopefully like,
Yeah,
Have to,
Sterling's pretty bad.
maybe we gotta get out more.
Sterling's terrible for
Yeah.
poison.
Yeah, there might be one spot I want to show you that's off the beaten track.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it, yeah. No, that'd be great. I've been wanting to do that since I started. And I knew we had a new committee too, so
Yeah,
Sure.
it'd be a good time to see what we're up to.
Sure.
And then the final thing I wanted to mention was I know County Planner Tim Anderson sat in on the CDBG change meeting that had happened. And were there any highlights from that you wanted to mention, Tim?
Well, it sounds like, there's been a lot of money sitting around in those, accounts statewide. And it's pretty restrictive in terms of the criteria for accessing those funds, but there's substantial money. I think there's $20 million or something like that statewide that's sitting on those funds right now. So their state is looking at closing the local, CDGB, accounts and producing another like low and moderate income housing program that the state would administer instead. So.
okay, sorry.
Of course, the biggest thing we want to make sure is that not all of the money stays in that part of the state and that
Yeah.
somehow we can lobby for it
That's
to
their
make sure
thing.
that we're getting
It's all going south.
getting some of the money up in this area. So just some things to be aware of, and I'm letting Administrator Norby know when we get more additional information on.
So is that the one in Eau Claire's gonna lose some of that too, then that?
No,
Grant.
from what I understand, it's still gonna be distributed regionally and each county will still have representation on that board for the regional distribution. So in theory, if we have representation, we should be able to get more money here.
What
But
board is it? What's the board called?
It's the regional consortium for the community development block grant program. It's been regional for,
Is that
For
West
new
Central
money.
Wisconsin Regional Planning?
no.
No.
No,
Okay.
it's another one, yeah.
Chippewa County Housing Authority is the one that manages it for the region.
Okay,
They've been the head agency for 5-6 years now. So they've already made changes to the program previously where it was, like the city of Amory has one, the county has one. So there's some administrative issues there where like, if you're a resident, you want to apply, you're not sure if you should apply to the town, to the city, to the county. So they're trying to streamline some of that, but I guess the program details still remain to be seen. But they're they're looking at a different model, try to distribute those funds. Mhm.
Yeah.
Keep you apprised of any that we hear.
It usually goes south when they consolidate.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Uh. Okay. Work plan before we go through that, yours.
Mine before the work plan?
We can do yours too. Do we have to have a closed session?
No.
Oh, then we're good. Okay.
There's nothing new on the Stour. We're still waiting for the appeals court to issue a ruling on that. Um, I don't have a timeline for that. It's whenever they get to it.
Sure.
The force versus the Board of Adjustment just finished briefing on the merits. So that is scheduled for oral arguments now in July. July 28th at 1 PM. Attorney Malone is representing us, or representing the Board of Adjustment. I'm representing the Environmental Services Committee. If you remember, the Environmental Services Committee did the initial fact-finding hearing, more or less, Board of Adjustment. Well, it went up, it came back down. The Board of Adjustment viewed the actions of the Environmental Services Committee and sent it back up. So now it's back up to the Circuit Court. And technically the appeal is of the Board of Adjustment's decision. But I represent you all. We more or less are reviewing what Attorney Malone from Atolis is drafting on behalf of the Board of Adjustment and verifying that the Environmental Services Committee agrees with it, which generally we will. So that's where we're at there. For now, there is a statement of what they believe to be undisputed facts, what Force believes to be undisputed facts that they filed. I think Attorney Malone, myself, Attorney Hellquist, and Attorney Vivian are going to work to make sure that there is an undisputed record of facts that will go in front of the court. And that'll be presented probably sometime in the next few weeks. And then again, that oral argument hearing is on July 18th. That's in front of Judge Tolan. And so after that, again, we wait to see what the decision is. We had a hearing in the Board of Adjustment on a permit application that was being appealed. The permit was appealed. The subject matter of that permit was a retaining wall. Question basically that the Board of Adjustment had to decide is whether or not our provision in our general zoning definitions, where we define a retaining wall as one boulder, not being a retaining wall, whether or not that applies in the shoreland zoning provision, or whether that is preempted basically by the state statute that says you just can't have a retaining wall. The Board of Adjustment looked at it, I believe, pretty pragmatically, said, is it a retaining wall? Yes, it is. You can't have it in the shoreline zoning. That seems to be the decision that they made. I didn't represent the Board of Adjustment in that particular hearing. I asked an outside counsel to represent them because of the potential issue related to the interpretation of the county statute. So because of that, they made the determination that the permit that was granted should be overturned. So they granted the appeal that was filed there. My guess, and the reason I'm telling you about it, is because I'm guessing it's going to go to the circuit court. I don't know that. No appeal of the Board of Adjustment's decision has been made yet, but that retaining wall is the subject of other litigation. And so most likely, because it's the subject of other litigation, it's probably going to get appealed.
Joe, can we clarify, not just retaining wall, but a one boulder high retaining wall?
Right, so the one sentence at the end of our definition of a retaining wall, yeah, that's the sentence.
That's what was
issue.
over, yeah.
So that's what was looked at there. Again, I assume that it's gonna end up in the circuit court. And you'll keep hearing about it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's it.
That's the blue rock, that, yep. Okay. On the
Nothing
work plan,
groundbreaking.
yeah. So on the work plan. June,
Yeah, we'll make sure we finalize, the fee schedule.
yep.
Um,
We have a budget report, tax deed update. Is she gonna give us? We're still probably sitting in no man's land, aren't we?
Which,
You gonna review all that land, that folder I gave you then? Give us that? Should- That policy she was supposed to say every other year, remember? We forgot to get that in there. But are you gonna do it this year?
it's in there now.
Is it, did you, somebody put it in there? Are you gonna do that at our meeting or not?
The tax deed or look at that whole list.
We have tax deed and review of county-owned properties.
The county-owned property will be every other year, which when the finance policy is approved, it'll be in 2026 then, because we did it in 2024.
Sure. Okay, so we won't be doing that.
Chair will also have the ordinance.
The ordinance should be back too. I have the DNR, okay. Budget report. Tax deed there probably won't be an update yet, will there?
I don't think so. We'll check with the man if there's anything
Okay.
movement on that.
Would she just give us a list of how many are on it now?
Sure.
You know, at least that part that we know we're not taking them back or whatever, we don't end up with 50, 60 properties again and be sitting way deep. If we have to do something,
So it's
okay,
still, I think it still sits at like 64,000 or 68,000.
it's pretty low yet. And there's like 15 that are the right of way stuff that we kind of,
Primarily all right away and a
Yeah.
couple roads.
so we haven't had a lot, okay.
So final fee schedule ordinance, budget report.
Well, then questions on the annual
Yeah,
updates,
and then-
if there's any questions, yeah,
The annual reports, like, yeah.
yep. And then if anything comes up, it doesn't look, that one shouldn't be,
Not sure if we're
have
gonna,
any CUPs or rezonings coming or
That one,
that one in,
McFeeder's one,
so
the
one
one
in
that
Dresser.
goes through the county board, that was the one up in Clam Falls. He has a CUP in
Okay.
for that resort, so that actually would be on that one, yeah.
Okay, so that,
Cause there should be, county boards, what date's county board this month?
Third
May 20.
Tuesday.
yeah,
so it might,
May
So if we can get the 2-week notice in.
Yeah, yeah, we should.
Close, it'll be.
Is there that one in Dresser yet, or didn't that went through the Board of Adjustment too, I thought? Lots in Dresser,
Which one?
in Dresser,
the lots.
Oh, that was a variance, yeah.
that was a variance on that,
Come here at all.
that doesn't come here,
No.
good, great, okay. Anybody think of anything else that we might have to see, if not?
Looking ahead at June, if you, depending on, the ordinances or what's gonna happen. I just wanted to look at that second meeting as, in June. It has been on the 18th in other,
Do you think we might need one? I think we have to go through that ordinance.
Yeah.
We'll see.
maybe we'll just move into July. That's July 4th week, yeah.
Yeah, we can go through it or do whatever, and I don't think. It's like we said, now we're in the middle of the season, it might end up that we got till the first of the year.
Fair enough.
And, implement it then and that. Then it doesn't look like we're going too fast, but maybe too slow, so,
Fair enough.
yeah,
Works for me.
So what did you just say? We're gonna only have one meeting in June?
so far, that's all
Okay.
we need.
I'm trying to help your travel plans, Sharon.
Yeah, but we have a board meeting the night before if we did that June one.
Yep.
So that doesn't really
Matter.
matter.
So the 17th is the board.
You just have to worry about your schedule, is that what?
That's
Okay,
right.
all right, just
My
to
travel
clarify.
schedule may I'm planning a trip. I don't know where or what yet, but I'm going somewhere.
Go to Sterling again, where your kids got the land, go camping,
Oh,
go
God, I
camping
did
with the
that.
bugs.
Yeah.
All right, are we good then? I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And there's a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Hey.
Opposed? None.
Out.
10:14.
14.